Hello, friends. I am Jessie.
I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Lauren.
And welcome to the 3 Shades of Real, where 3 women, a mom and her 2 daughters, come together to share their unique perspectives on life, relationships, and everything in between. Today, whoop whoop, we are discussing the topic of flying the coop, the experience of having your kiddos leave home, and how your kiddos feel leaving. And I want to shout out to MJ Winiger Schmaltz. She's the one that came up with the topic for this episode, and we are so excited to be kind of brainstorming and discussing and exploring today. So let's talk first, ladies, about the excitement and freedom of leaving.
All right. Well, I will definitely start us off. I left for college, did the things. I would say my experience leaving, I was excited, for sure excited, but also scared, terrified, because I had been places and stuff and done different things that have prepared me for leaving, I guess, and being away from home for longer periods of time. But it's definitely different when you're you don't know. You know when you're going to be back, but you don't know when you're going to be back, if that makes sense. And so, spring break and Christmas break and fall break, you can go home and stuff, but you are also, learning a new schedule day to day and going to classes and trying to make friends and do all the things. And so, I guess my initial thoughts were definitely terrified. For sure.
It sounds like a lot of complex emotions. Like you had said, you were kind of excited, you're going to be on your own, you're going to be able to make your own choices and decisions and kind of create this new life and lifestyle for yourself. But also this idea of being completely without a safety net is a little bit frightening.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's there to tell you, hey, you might want to stay in tonight and do your homework. Maybe don't go to that event. Maybe stay in and do your homework. Nobody's there, or to wake up for classes. And I feel even as I was touring different places to go to college, that was definitely a topic that got brought up. Even in just the tours.
Mm-hmm. They talked a lot about it. Hey, kids, this is what you can anticipate and get ready.
Yeah. And the one, didn't even really discuss the program that I was interested in. All they talked about was how nobody's going to be there to wake you up. And I was okay, I can expect that.
Yeah. But you were pretty responsible. I would say, it's a different experience and a different level of discomfort for kids who are raised kind of without the expectation of having to do those things on their own, and other kids who are expected to do those things on their own and have a level of responsibility when they are kind of transitioning into that college experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel growing up the way that I did, and with the responsibilities of having siblings and driving all over all the time and getting to sports and athletics and getting them to their stuff as well definitely prepared me for okay, I need to be at XYZ at this time, and how do I plan for, okay, these are the things I need to, even living out of town, these are the things that I need to do in town. So how do I plan around that and stuff like that? But yeah, I remember thinking back to the first night when I got dropped off, and I only had one other roommate that was there. And I kid you not, I was in a suite, so I had 2 roommates. We were all connected with a living space, but they had their own room, and then I had my own roommate, and she wasn't there yet. And I remember getting there, and my now husband dropped me off with my mom and my stepdad. And I remember locking myself in my room and just crying for ever.
You're a weepy bitch.
I'm emotional. No, I just remember feeling like I was so alone.
Yeah.
And like nobody was there that I knew, like that knew me or that I knew. And that freaked me out.
Well, and you were pretty far away from home. Like this wasn't just like a jaunt, a couple hours away. You were far from home.
Yeah, 8 hours. Around 8 hours. But yeah, no, I just remember crying. And then my other roommate knocked on the door. Are you hungry? I'm like, yes. Let's go get food.
So she knew your love language right away.
Yes, she did.
Feed me.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, I would say those were my first initial kind of thoughts moving away. What about you?
I had a really like non-traditional kind of childhood. So I feel like my experiences of like leaving were very different. And so my family definitely wasn't like your nuclear family. Like I didn't have both parents at home. So I was on my own for a lot of my kind of middle school, high school years. And kind of lots of things were happening. And I found myself actually needing to find an alternative place to live during high school. And so I didn't have like that, hey, I graduated and now I'm leaving. I actually left home and left my family when I was probably around 15, 16 years old. And moved in with a boyfriend, which I do not recommend. As a child, you should not.
I do not condone.
You should not play house. That was a very not great experience for me. At the time, it was necessary. It really was kind of a thing that had to be done for me to be able to take care of myself. And so in leaving, there wasn't like this excitement. It was almost like this just necessity for me at that time. So when I think about like leaving, I actually like think about the moment I left my relationship to go to college. And the relationship didn't end at that time, but it was this idea of leaving that house that I was in and kind of going off to college and doing the whole dorm room thing. Super scary. I think for me, it was really scary just because I didn't have like stability and support from my family, like is typical. And I was really, really worried about my relationship when I left. And so I feel like I wasn't even able to kind of focus and enjoy my college experience. Oh my gosh, my first year, I was a misfit. It was a really awkward, terrible experience. It was awful. Like head shave, dyed red. My poor roommate, Lynette.
Shout out to Lynette.
Shout out, Lynette. I probably wrecked her in a lot of ways because I was so emotionally damaged, I think, at that point in my life. Like, I was obsessed with Cher, and I'd just lay in bed with like the lights off, and she would be coming in and out, like, to go to classes and stuff, and not me. No, I was shaved head, hidden underneath the blankets, just listening to Cher on repeat. Is there life after love?
Oh my.
Spending like every single weekend going back home to just try to like have some semblance, I guess, of like normalcy, and to like that was my ground zero, I guess, my base camp. So it was painful. It was a really painful experience. But I think that like before I left my family, even like when I was in like a freshman year, you have that buildup of excitement, anticipating like what it's going to be like on this cusp of adulthood, right? I didn't like it. I didn't like adulting. I had to work really hard. I had to pay for college on my own. I had to navigate transportation on my own. And so it was a lot of heavy decisions for me, which made it really, really hard to have that excitement piece for me, I guess. So, yeah, I know my neck is turning so red.
I'm not even looking at it.
You are. I see you.
I'm not looking at it while you're looking at me.
I know.
Looking at it on the sly.
Yeah. So when I get like to talking about things that are really personal or kind of difficult, like you can totally tell my body reacts. And I get like hives on my chest and my neck. And yeah, I can totally feel it right now. I'm like a hot sauna over here.
Take a shirt off.
That might be a little inappropriate.
They can't see you. It's fine.
How about you, Laura? Because your experience too was very, very different than both Caitlin and I.
Yeah, I was actually really excited to talk about this topic. Not necessarily for me to physically talk about this topic, but just to listen to what you guys had to say. Because I actually didn't leave. I had intentions to. I'm still in my nest. Just kidding. I had full intentions of leaving. Had a roommate in university I got accepted to. Everything was set and ready to go. And then my older brother, who had just turned 21, had gotten into a car accident. And that kind of just put everything on hold for a little bit. I come from a very close-knit family. And I personally, might have used this as an excuse looking back. Also kind of just realizing that right now. But that's okay too. Either way, it happened, whatever. But I ended up staying and sticking around because most of my senior year, I kind of lived on my own. I bounced around with some family friends for a little bit. But my parents were in and out of the hospital in Sioux Falls with my brother at the time. So I kind of just lost sight of that plan. And I think just kind of having something like that happen so suddenly and tragically really kind of did some stuff to me emotionally. And so I actually just didn't want to leave. I felt like I wanted to stay home with my family, and my brother wasn't fully healed yet at that point. A couple months after that happened, then he went back into the hospital. So yeah, I ended up sticking around home. I moved into my parents' basement because I was upstairs.
Change of scenery.
I just didn't leave the house.
You migrated.
Yeah. I moved into the basement and they were like such troopers. They're like, we know this isn't what you wanted it to look like, but we're going to make this like an apartment style type thing. And so I had the whole basement to myself and whatever. I'm super close with my family, so I never really felt like I was still living with my parents, if that makes sense. I definitely felt like they were roommates. And I mean, we have a group chat on our phone right now and it's called Roomies. I mean, they definitely parented me and stuff, but I don't know. They never made me feel like I was a little kid that didn't have any choice or autonomy after I graduated high school. So that was pretty cool. I ended up going to a community college around here. And yeah, that's kind of my Coop story. I don't live with them anymore. Side note, I got my own house now. But I still hang out with them all the time because they are awesome.
I think that's such a real phenomenon, though, because we have all these expectations of what it's going to look like. And sometimes when life happens and you have to switch gears and adapt, that can be really, really devastating. And, you would use the word excuse. I don't see it as an excuse. I see it as you shifting because it was necessary. I mean, really at the time, your choices were to stay home, take care of your family, and prioritize that or leave. And I think that just speaks to the love and the closeness that you and your family have.
Yeah.
Well,
and I definitely think things happen for a reason. And that for sure was the higher power's way of telling me that that's kind of the structure and support that I needed through college, because I also was not a traditional student in high school. Like, it was really difficult for me to do self-paced work. And then my first year, I think it was our first year, wasn't it, Caitlin? in college, COVID.
Yes. Yep. Our
Yeah.
first year, March of my first year.
Yep. So our first year in college, COVID hit and everything went online, and that was super difficult for me because, like I said, I don't really have that like get up and go type. We need to get everything done now. I'm a procrastinator. And so I think everything happened for a reason, and I needed that like structure and support from my family and the close-knit vibe of the college that I went to. I mean, I was like one-on-one with my professors in every class, and it was awesome. And I needed that in order to succeed in school, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the flip side, about how the empty nest feels. And, this is going to be kind of a hard topic for you guys to chime in on, I know, because you haven't experienced it yet. But, that emotional gut punch that you go through when your kids are starting to kind of leave and become adults, and you have to kind of reframe your relationship. It was really awful. And and I guess for me, like a lot of it was like fake it till I make it. Caitlin, with you was my very first experience.
I called every day.
Oh my gosh. So even leading up, I was like pretending to be okay. You kind of like focus on like the excitement of it. And as a parent, we have all these fears and worries about being able to keep our kids safe because that's our main job, like until they graduate. And then there's like supposed to be this magic like clipping of that string, and you're supposed to be like, okay, letting them fly. And that's just daunting to me. And so, yeah, like leading up, I so remember having a lot of different feelings and a lot of different fears, but not wanting you to know. And like crying in silent or like hiding some of that trepidation I felt because I didn't want it to sour your excitement. And I didn't want you to think that I wasn't confident in your ability because I knew you would do great. I knew you would. But just that idea of you being so far away and me not being able to be there to know and like do the things was really quite scary. And then when you did actually leave, I remember so many times like overthinking about like, how often should I call? Do I call every day like I want to and be a helicopter mom? And what if I like, kind of negatively impact her experience because I'm back here and she wants to be out there? And I think one of the things that I think about a lot is I wish that I would have communicated to you a little bit more about how I was feeling and gotten some like feedback from you instead of trying to like guess it on my own, like thinking I knew how you felt or how you might feel instead of just asking you.
Because I definitely like when I think of back, like I was definitely like, am I calling too much? Like, am I asking too many questions? Am I being a nag? Like, I was definitely, and so it's so interesting to see it now, and especially since we're out of it now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do wish because I think we would have called more. I don't know if that was humanly possible.
Right.
But.
Well, and I think you and I, and a lot of people have really close relationships with their parents, and that makes it really hard to kind of navigate how much space is the right amount of space. Whereas now, you're my very first experience as far as that empty nest piece. But like, when some of my other kiddos left, it was a lot different scenario and unique to each person because their personalities were so very different. And so it's unique. And I think not a lot of people talk about this piece enough because it really leaves parents feeling like they're floundering, like treading water and not sure which direction to go. And I hear sometimes people talk about like how that's a bad thing. Like parents shouldn't be like that. But honestly, I just want to normalize and validate it that why wouldn't we be? Why wouldn't that be a painful, hard experience to go through when we've spent the last 18 years thinking about all the things, And now all of a sudden you're just supposed to like step away. I don't know. The concept is just foreign to me.
That's like cutting off your right arm. Like that's that person's been in your life. Their entire lives have been with you. And then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, bye.
Yeah.
Fly.
Jess, I have a question for you because I know that you have seen off 4 of your children out of the 6. And girls and a boy. Is there or has there been any difference in that feeling for you based off of their gender?
A little bit, just because I think the relationships are a little bit different. With some of my kiddos, I was super close, super involved, and like tightly intertwined. Those were really, really like hard to navigate. But I also have kind of these unique relationships, like with my son. He didn't necessarily come to me as much and for as many things. Like it was more like logistics. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that emotional support that he came to me for, but it was more logistical. So he would call me when he needed something, we'd make sure he had everything he needed. But there wasn't that that emotional piece wasn't as deep there. And so that I had less fear just because it wasn't something that we ever did in the past, is have those really big emotional like conversations or connections. And then my other 2 kiddos, they were step kiddos. And so I didn't spend like their entire lives with them. And of course, then I also had to share that experience, got to share that experience with my husband, who was their dad. And so it felt a little bit different too with them because I had a partner to kind of navigate that with and take some of that pressure kind of off in like the worry or logistics or whatever. And so I think each kid was just really kind of unique depending on the type of relationship and like their gender and their personality.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I was just curious because you have a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, like, how have you prepared differently now that you've gone kind of through that experience? Like, I mean,
that's a good question.
Yeah. Caleb's coming up here soon. I mean, he's not like right now, but soon-ish.
In a year.
Yeah.
And he's a very different kind of animal for me. Love him to death. But he is just doesn't have the same vision and like intention than you and Ketch and Hope and Haley had. You guys were very driven, kind of knew what you wanted to do, were ready to take that step, where he's still in that kind of space of, I'm not even sure I want to go to college. I don't know what I want to do. And that actually is really difficult for me because I'm a planner.
You are
like
a planner.
Every single day, I'm like, so have we thought about our interests? Should we fill out an interest inventory? Should we like tour colleges? Do you want to have a shadowing experience? Like when you think 5 years from now, what does that look like? Like I'm always trying to lead him. And right now he's just super like, yeah, I don't care. Yeah.
I feel like that's so typical though. Like, I don't know. I've never been a high school boy and I don't really talk. I don't know. But I just feel like that's something that's really typical. Like they're all just kind of like, but we're having chicken nuggets for lunch tomorrow. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, and I have to really check myself because my personality is one where I will push my own agenda, which is not okay. It's just not. It isn't my life. But I think that comes from a space of love and wanting the best for our kids and kind of knowing what's going to help make their lives easier And so with Caleb, I've really kind of tried to take a step back and honor his autonomy and his experience and not be so pushy with what I think the right decision is or the right move is. But then also being brave in this idea that by stepping back, he might make some choices that might make his life harder. And I just have to believe that that is what is intended for his life and that he'll be okay no matter what. And so I think that piece is like a control piece for me, for sure.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
It's hard giving
for
up
sure.
that.
For sure.
It's hard giving up that control, especially when you've had such they've been a large piece of your life. And then, you're helping them take their first steps to, okay, now you're supposed to do it.
Stepping out my house.
Right. And just that trust that you have prepared them. Like, oh my gosh, have I done all the things that I needed to do to make sure they're okay? But it is just trusting that you did provide all of the opportunities for them to become who they're supposed to. And then kind of having faith in that. But it's scary as hell.
Yeah. Well, I think also in this day and age, it's kind of better or like easier because of the technology that we have. Because I'm thinking, and that would be so hard. I mean, I know I've only been a mom for like 3 years, but that would be so difficult to not have a phone or a way to contact your child and they left. And like in the back of the day, they were going to war.
Right.
That is insane. And we're worried about them sitting in the cafeteria alone at college. But, it's just crazy. Crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's wild. Caitlin, you're moving into the nesting in preparation for welcoming your baby. How is that feeling for you?
I'm really excited. Really excited. We finished baby's room. Well, for the most part. We painted and did all the things and got everything ready. And I don't know, having these like topics come up on these podcasts, it's been interesting, like reflecting and thinking.
She's reflecting.
Hey, this bitch is a mirror over here.
But thinking about how like my perspective might change too on some of these topics, and like thinking about like I mean it's definitely a real thing. I will be having a child, but thinking about like I can't even. That's too far in the future.
Right.
Like to even.
I mean, next episode he'll be here.
He'll be. What?
Yeah.
I cannot wait.
Realization is setting in her eyeballs are the size of bowling balls right now.
Thank you for pointing that out, Lauren.
I'm actually going to have this baby?
It was all in my head. Lauren, because Kaysen's a little bit older. So have you kind of thought about this topic, like looking forward in the future? How are you feeling?
So I know it's kind of crazy to think about that because you're like, okay, be so for real. He's not even 3 yet and we're talking about like empty nest syndrome. But it seriously goes by so fast. I feel like I was just pregnant yesterday and like freaking out doing the whole nesting thing, which is also super fun. I love nesting. I can't wait to help Caitlin nest.
I was just going to say, she's literally coming over.
I'm so excited. But you like, as much as you don't want to rush things, they rush themselves and the time goes by so fast. So you think about like, what is he going to be interested in? Do you think he'll go away? Do you think he'll stay? Like all of these different things. I'm not like concerned about it right now. But he is such a little mama's boy. So I know that when that time comes, it's going to be so difficult. So I'll just have to like listen back to this podcast.
Absolutely.
Prepare myself.
Well, any final thoughts as we kind of prepare to wind down? Any advice or things that are kind of just calling out to you that you want to share before we sign off for today?
Go to college.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. Whether that looks like leaving the nest, needing to stay in the nest for that extra support, have all the experiences. You know, whatever that looks like. I guess not even necessarily college, trade school, get a cool job. Like, go do. Do hard and have fun.
I think back and like you moving into like the nesting and like adulting and having a kid. And like college is really like the opportunity of a lifetime because it's where you finally get to like explore yourself almost by yourself. Like you don't have anybody else there.
Yeah, it isn't like high school. Like you have all this peer pressure to just align and chameleon. You actually have the opportunity to discover like your identity piece. Yeah.
Yeah, like no one knows you. You could be anything or anyone, be whoever you want to be. And that's the coolest part. And do whatever you want to do. And that's the scariest as well.
Yeah.
Like, get yourself into a lot of trouble there.
Yes. But you definitely have to. It's some good years. Well, share any of your wildest moving out or empty nest moments on our comment section underneath the podcast episode in Spotify. Our episodes drop on the first Monday of every month. Join us in May as we're deep diving into aging as a power move.
Because it's my birthday.
Whoop, whoop.
Month.
And we're going to have a baby.
Yeah. We're going to have a baby. All the things are happening next month.
All right, guys. Peace out.
Peace.
Signing off.
This is Jess.
This is Caitlin.
And this is Lauren.